Running a race where every step feels like a victory until it suddenly turns into a fight for survival. That's exactly what happened during a 100-kilometer ultramarathon in China's stunning Yellow River Stone Forest. What started as a day of sunshine and triumph ended in unimaginable tragedy when an unexpected storm hit, claiming the lives of 21 runners. How could something so well planned go so horribly wrong? Could this disaster have been prevented? Stick around to uncover the shocking details of one of the deadliest sporting events in history and the lessons every adventurer must know. The Gansu Ultramarathon was no ordinary race. It was a grueling 100-kilometer journey through the breathtaking but unforgiving Yellow River Stone Forest in Gansu, China. Known for its dramatic sandstone cliffs and steep elevation changes, this course was designed to challenge even the toughest runners. The rugged terrain required endurance, strategy, and mental toughness. Remote checkpoints dotted the route, some so isolated that they were inaccessible by car. Runners came from all over China to test their limits. Among them was Liang Jing, a well-known ultramarathon champion with countless victories under his belt. Fans called him Liang God because of his unmatched stamina and determination. Another standout participant was Huang Guanjun, a Paralympic champion who had already proved that physical limitations were no barrier to success. Huang, who was hearing impaired, had won gold in the marathon at the 2019 National Paralympic Games. For both men, this race was another chance to prove their greatness. The atmosphere at the starting line was electric. On the morning of May 22, 2021, 172 runners gathered, ready to take on the challenge. Most wore lightweight gear, expecting mild weather similar to previous years. Some joked about the overcast skies, seeing it as relief from the usual heat. Spirits were high, and the runners were eager to conquer the scenic, yet punishing trail. The organizers had planned for the race to push physical and mental boundaries, but no one anticipated the dangers that lay ahead. For these athletes, this was supposed to be a test of endurance, not survival. As they took their first steps onto the trail, the runners had no idea that they were about to face one of the deadliest disasters in sports history. The ultramarathon began with an air of excitement and optimism. As the runners left the starting line, the weather seemed manageable. Though the skies were cloudy, it wasn't unusual for this region, and the light breeze added a refreshing touch. The course took runners through stunning landscapes, towering sandstone formations and dramatic canyons carved over centuries by the Yellow River. It was a setting so beautiful that many said it fueled their motivation to keep going despite the challenging climbs. The camaraderie among runners was evident in these early hours. Some joked about who would reach the finish line first, while others shared tips about pacing and hydration. For many participants, this wasn't just a competition, it was a shared adventure, a way to test their personal limits in a supportive atmosphere. But as the race progressed, the weather began to shift. Clouds thickened and the wind started to pick up. By the time runners reached higher elevations, gusts became stronger, forcing some to lean into the wind just to stay balanced. What started as a light chill quickly turned into a biting cold. Many dismissed these changes, thinking it was just part of the natural variability in mountain weather. There were no immediate signs of danger, and the runners' determination to push forward kept them moving. Most were experienced athletes, confident in their ability to handle tough conditions. However, as temperatures dropped even further, discomfort grew. Rain started to fall, lightly at first, but its intensity was building. Despite these early warnings, no one could have guessed how quickly the situation would spiral out of control. For the runners, the idea of turning back felt unthinkable. Little did they know, they were heading straight into an unfolding disaster. As the runners climbed higher into the Yellow River Stone Forest, the weather took a sudden and devastating turn. Within moments, the rain became heavier, mixed with hailstones that stung exposed skin. Violent winds howled through the open terrain, cutting through the runners' light clothing. Without trees or natural cover, the participants were completely exposed to the elements, and there was nowhere to hide. The temperature dropped sharply, leaving many runners unprepared. Dressed for a mild day, most were wearing shorts and thin vests, completely inadequate for the freezing conditions. The icy rain soaked their clothing, further sapping their body heat. The strong winds made it nearly impossible to stay warm, as runners began to feel the early effects of hypothermia. Some tried to seek shelter behind rocks or inside small crevices, but the storm's intensity made even temporary relief difficult. Survivors later described the feeling of their bodies shutting down, with numb hands and legs that refused to move. Others desperately pressed on, hoping to find a checkpoint or rescue team. Communication failures added to the chaos. With no cell service in critical areas of the course, distress signals were delayed by up to 45 minutes. By the time organizers realized the severity of the situation, hours had passed, and many runners were already in life-threatening conditions. The remote checkpoints made it even harder for help to arrive quickly. Tragically, some runners couldn't didn't find shelter in time. Huang Guanjun, the Paralympic champion, was last seen soaked to the bone, struggling against the storm. Despite his determination, he didn't make it off the mountain alive. For those who survived, the storm felt endless. The combination of freezing temperatures, relentless wind, and pelting hail created a nightmare that no one could have foreseen. It was a race against time, one that many could not win. Just a quick detour. If these stories of courage and resilience have touched you, why not join us on this journey of exploring humanity's most gripping tales? Hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a story like this. Let's uncover more stories together. Get back to our story in hand. In the face of such a devastating disaster, the human spirit shone through in moments of incredible courage and kindness. Shepherd Zhu Keming, a humble local living in the Yellow River Stone Forest, became an unexpected hero. When the storm hit, Zhu noticed runners struggling and realized the danger they were in. Without hesitation, he sprang into action, braving the brutal winds and freezing rain to guide 6 runners to the safety of his cave. Once there, he lit a fire, shared his blankets, and comforted the athletes who were on the brink of collapse. His quick thinking and selflessness saved lives. But Zhu wasn't the only one who acted heroically. Local villagers, despite being ill-equipped for the conditions, climbed the treacherous terrain to search for stranded runners. They carried warm clothing and supplies, determined to bring as many people to safety as they could. These volunteers, many of whom were familiar with the dangers of the area, put their own lives at risk to aid complete strangers. Their bravery amidst the chaos showed the best of humanity during one of its darkest moments. Survivors shared stories of these life-saving efforts that they will never forget. One runner recalled barely being able to move when Zhu Keming appeared and pulled them to shelter. Another described how a villager carried them for miles through the icy winds, refusing to let them give up. For many, these acts of kindness were the only reason they survived. However, not everyone was as fortunate. Some runners succumbed to hypothermia just meters from safety. Rescuers later discovered individuals who had fought valiantly against the storm, but had collapsed before reaching shelter. The sight of bodies scattered along the rugged terrain left rescuers heartbroken, knowing that a few more minutes or another hand to help could have saved lives. The contrast between the heroism of people like Zhu and the grim realities of those who perished highlights the brutal nature of the disaster. While the stories of survival offer hope, the tragedy underscores the importance of preparation and quick response in extreme sports events. It was a day of both unimaginable loss and extraordinary humanity, a day that will be remembered forever. After the Gansu Ultramarathon disaster, rescue teams quickly sprang into action. Emergency crews, many of whom were unprepared for the extreme conditions themselves, rushed to the scene to recover bodies and assist survivors. The harsh weather made the task incredibly difficult. As darkness fell, teams continued searching the mountain trails, finding runners who had not made it back and offering medical help to those who had survived. Sadly, many were beyond saving by the time rescuers arrived. Furthermore, critical communications failures delayed the response. Distress signals from remote checkpoints went unanswered for too long, leaving stranded runners without help in life-threatening conditions. The race organizers had not set up sufficient communication networks in the mountainous region, making it nearly impossible to alert emergency teams when the situation turned deadly. The results of the investigation were pretty grim. Authorities immediately launched an investigation into what went wrong during the race. The race organizers were found guilty of gross negligence. They had ignored multiple warnings of severe storms, including hail, freezing rain, and strong winds. The organizers did not take the necessary precautions. They failed to provide adequate safety measures and lacked proper contingency plans for an emergency. Along with runners being underdressed, there were no adequate shelters or proper safety measures in place along the route. In the wake of the disaster, the authorities imposed legal consequences. The organizers faced fines and sentencing for their part in the deaths of 21 people. In addition to the punishment for the organizers, the tragedy led to a major change in China's approach to high-risk sporting events. The government announced the suspension of all similar extreme sports events until stricter regulations and safety measures were put in place. The hope was that no other event would suffer the same fate, with future races requiring more comprehensive planning and safety protocols. The tragedy of the Gansu Ultramarathon left a lasting impact on the Chinese running community. While the survivors and rescuers were hailed as heroes, the event also served as a harsh reminder of the importance of planning, preparation, and response in extreme sports. It's clear that without those crucial elements, what started as a race to test human endurance can quickly turn into a fight for survival. The good part is that people took this event as something better to implement. The major takeaway from this incident is that organizers must ensure participants have the right gear and implement real-time weather monitoring monitoring. In this case, the lack of proper gear left many runners unprepared for sudden cold temperatures and severe weather. Now, organizers worldwide are requiring mandatory weather-resistant jackets and thermal blankets for participants. Clear communication is another critical lesson. Distress signals went unanswered due to poor communication systems, leading to delays in rescue efforts. Effective communication, including satellite phones and emergency teams, is now essential for any extreme sports event. The disaster has sparked global discussions on endurance, sport safety. Tougher regulations and guidelines are being put in place, focusing on weather forecasting, athlete protection, and constant monitoring. The tragedy has reshaped the industry, emphasizing that safety and preparation must always be the priority, which is a good part. What do you think? Could better preparation have saved lives? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this story shocking and want to hear more, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a story like this. We've got more wild, untold tales coming your way, so stay tuned, stay curious and engaged, share your thoughts, and let's keep this conversation going. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.